Right, let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Danny Lee Porsche Cup. From across the Atlantic, we've ping-ponged and now we're back in the States. It is the Virginia International Raceway. After a club circuit of Snetterton, we now go to this circuit. It's Virginia, and I'm Alexa Marshall, joined by Adam Reed, back in the box with me, and bringing you all the camera shots here this evening will be Jamie Fluke. Adam, welcome back. You were here with us for Road Atlanta. Now we're back in America at the Virginia International Raceway. What do we think it's going to look like today after such a change from Snetterton now to Virginia?
I think it's going to be a very, very interesting race because, of course, as you say, Virginia, a very, very different circuit compared to what you usually get. Of course, it seems like we've got a lot of tracks in the US in this Danny Lee Porsche Cup Series Championship. You know, the American tracks are so popular amongst sim racers. You know, they're challenging, they're fast, they're tight, they're slow, they can be at some points. I think Virginia is going to be another circuit in the cauldron of carnage that this series is going to cause.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. It is a 3.24 mile long circuit, as we just saw. But what's going to be even more interesting is how the championship does look going into this race, because realistically, we had quite a few happen over the week at Snetterton. It's Felix Votter who leads in the elite class, sitting up top on 381 points. Corey Lazarus sits in P number 2, 358 to their name. Then dropping further down is P number 3 of Chris Van Den Esse in P number 3 with 292. It's then Luke Andrews, Elias Finoli, Stefan Bosch, Oscar Bernson, Danny Lee, Matt Strand, and Jarno Della Flor rounds out in P10 with Sam Mazomo, and then George Tyler to round out the pro class in P number 12. Going over to the next category, that is of course going to be the pros, as of course is slightly different here. It's Dean Powell who leads in about 370 points to his name. Luke Blow not far behind to 358 there. It's then Steve Kleiss who's in P number 3 with 292 points, with Willie Blair in P number 4 with 277. Jesper Burns sits in P number 5 with 265 points to their name, with Edric Reyes in P number 6. It is then Christopher McDuff in P number 7, Rhys Saunders P8, Robin Noel Brown in P number 9, and Karen Betty in P number 10. It's then Ben Altria and Shannon Fever who round out that grid. You can see P number 11 and 12 having quite a few DNFs over this season so far. And then over to the amateur class here in the Danny Lee Porsche Cup, it is Ricardo Louis Pereira who sits up top, 346 points to their name. Mike Pierce in P number 2 with 323, and then it's Martin Kenyon with 319 in P number 3. As of course, you've also got Gabardi there in P number 4. He's had some very good races in Britain, not so much in the States, but it's P number 4 for him with Grammy Vivas in P number 5. It's then Ed Junker in P number 6 with Jeremy Walsh in P number 7. It's Andrew Fellows in P number 8 with Cisco Rodriguez in P number 9, and Clive Davies rounds up in P number 10. It's then Kate Choss and Samuel Clark who will round out those standings. And of course, we got practice ongoing right now for you, but of course the Danny Lee Porsche Cup is brought to you by the title sponsor of GT Omega. We give a big thank you to GT Omega for their enormous support of the series. GT Omega is a Scottish company and is the UK's leading supplier of sim racing cockpits, gaming chairs and essential gaming accessories. Delivery to the UK, EU and United States. They offer a range of excellent value sim racing cockpits from beginner to advanced. Furthermore, you can also get 5% off all GT Omega products with the discount code Danny Lee. That's DANNYLEE, all in capitals, with checkout. Their full range at gtomega.co.uk, gtomega.eu or gtomega.com. GTOmega.com. And the final note on that would be 3 lots of GT Omega £100 vouchers will be awarded to 3 competitors at the end of the season in a draw. As we see Daniel Lee there, he just pulled over to the side, back to the pits, and that is Oscar Berntsen, who is currently going around the Virginia International Raceway. It's a very different circuit here, as we've got 5 minutes left on the clock, Adam. So it's going to be very interesting to see how these drivers will adapt to it over the 2-week break that we've had between races, and especially through that little section where it can get a little bit tight, and especially heading up the hill here.
Absolutely, you know, there's going to be so many challenges. You're already seeing that with Oscar Berntsen as he is through the middle section and just tries to get the car turned in. Of course, these are latter stages of this practice session, so we do get a bit of an insight into how these drivers are attacking the circuit. You know, we do have the testing times there on the left hand side, and of course you see that we have the elite class in the yellow, we have the AM in the bronze, and the pros in the silver. So kind of think of it as a podium. The elites are the high class, the pros are the middle class, and the AMs are the bottom class. But you know, we're already seeing the elevation around this circuit. This is the first time I've covered Virginia International Raceway in any sort of simulation. Of course, it's one of the best out there in iRacing, and I think there's going to be a very warm welcome around here to Virginia. We're already starting to see some patterns happening around in this championship so far in terms of the practice time, but of course, let's not get too far into that. You know, you get some really good drivers who have some very practice sessions, but you know, that might not be the final outcome once the checker flag drops later on tonight.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of the checker flag dropping later on tonight, like you were talking about, you saw the elite, pro, and AMs. If it wasn't already clear with the championship, whilst we do have different classifications of drivers out there on the circuit, each category has their own point system. So whilst you may be an amateur driver and finish P13 overall, if you're the top in your AM class, you will get max points. So that is going to be Felix Votter as well for the elite class, who goes to the top. Felix Votter seemingly has been on a bit of a ride this season, so right now he is most likely the favourite to look at when it comes to winning in that part. But also Gabardi, he's had a few little moments, especially in Britain. He's absolutely loved those circuits. Kate Choss as well up on the timing, as there is a Vesta Gabardi for Spider GT in that black, blue and yellow livery. And this may just be me, but we talked about this last time you were here, Adam, with the liveries out here. But it's really nice to see all the liveries that are in use. Personally, for me, Gabardi, I'm getting good old Napa vibes.
I actually feel that with this one, of course. So it's got a little bit of black on that, but if they cover that a little bit of dark blue, or just tried to put the yellow over it, again, I'm seeing a bit of Napa vibes. But you know, you're right. The liveries do look great out there, and you know, I love it when drivers go all out to create a livery. You know, I was covering Assetto Corsa Competizione last week, actually. So yeah, about 6 days ago, and we had I think it was a Joker livery on a Ginetta G55. So you know, I love it when drivers decide to go all out. We see Ed Junker in that beautiful matte black and yellow striped Porsche Carrera Cup. You know, he's looking not too bad at this moment in time, but away from the times, these drivers are just trying to dial themselves in for those last few seconds around the circuit. Chris Vandeney's just on the edge of the top 10 here in his number 32, Mantini Racing, black and green. Corey Lazarus there, the New Zealander, I was going to say is looking pretty strong for the Swedes, but of course a couple of drivers have gone a little bit quicker at the latter stages. You know, this is them trying to maybe prep for this qualifying session which is coming up, and of course there's not much time left in qualifying. It's about trying to find that space, because Virginia has got a lot of space to it, plenty of corners, 18 to be precise, and we're on the 3.27 full course tonight.
I mean, that's the thing with Virginia. It's like you said, it's your first time doing Virginia, also my first time doing Virginia. So it's going to be an interesting one. Corey Lazarus and Felix Votter, as we see Dean Powell there going over the grass. As Daniel Lee's teammate there, as we see Steve Kleiss, who's making his way around as well. Corey Lazarus and Felix Votter are the two who are locked in that championship fight at the very top. We saw it on the elite standings that nobody else is really close. So we're in the second half of the season now. Of course, we've got the Nordschleife, which is going to be the final round. But we also head up to Montreal into not Montreal, more like Canada as a whole. We head up to Canada in 2 weeks' time, but we're here in America for this week. So it's going to be an interesting one to see what will happen as free practice is going to be coming to an end as you see the cars disappear and poofing into a little bit of smoke from what we are seeing on the screen at this moment in time. So we're going to wait to see what will happen there, because we're going to have qualifying come the way very, very shortly. Of course, we've got Road Atlanta. It's a 45-minute race instead of two 25-minute races, as of course they do switch per round here in the Daniel Lee Porsche Cup. The 1 week will be two 25-minute races and then a 45-minute race afterwards. So that does create a bit of variation in this circuit and the way that these drivers are going to have to fight against each other, because in two 25-minute races, you have a bad race one, you can go again in race two. But tonight, it's just going to be it's quite simple. You got one race, you got to do your work in that race. So it's going to be an interesting one to see what will happen with all these drivers, as it is going to be up and done, up and over, as we get ready to go qualifying here around this circuit, as it is currently out there, and we're watching Luke Andrews, who is making his way around. It's going to be an interesting one around this circuit as the timing tower now pops up. And another key factor to point out as well, if you are new to the Daniel Lee Porsche Cup, it is basically a solo qualifying. So you're allowed 4 laps around the circuit, but you are out there on your own, and there is no other whilst the other drivers are driving around the circuit, you will not see any other drivers. So it creates quite an interesting atmosphere, because racing, you've got all the other cars, but qualifying, you are out there on your own, and you don't really know what the other times are going to be for the drivers until they start popping up on that board.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you're basically in a world of darkness. You just got to kind of get that tunnel vision going and follow your own path. For some of you already saw that a couple of drivers like Dean Powell was at the complete opposite end of the circuit to where Felix Votter is. And those 4 laps are going to be so crucial. But I think it's a good decision that they're going to be out on their own, because this is a very, very tough circuit to try and get it right, as we have had our way into all the horseshoe for the first time lapped here with Votter. I think these guys are going to be very much on the limit. They're going to be sliding the car out of some places. They're going to have to try and get the car tilted in, and the last thing you need is a lot of traffic in the way. And Virginia is such a difficult place when it comes to traffic. GT cars and Porsche Carrera Cup cars, they're so difficult. Vossa goes out a little bit wide through there as he heads in towards the S section to head underneath the bridge. A very, very unique section is this uphill section right here, because you see there the elevation, you turn it in towards the left, you head in towards the right, you're clipping each apex as you head your way up towards almost a house. You're kind of almost velocity, with a lot of velocity underneath you. You're heading towards a big house on the hill, but then you've got to try and get your braking right for this double right-hander. How difficult that can be.
Yeah, I mean, you got to really push the car to the absolute maximum around a circuit like this. As we're 3 minutes deep, it's 15-minute qualifying session overall. There will be a little 5-minute cooldown between the qualifying and the race, but it really just shows how much you can really do. And it does seem like not many people are getting lap times in it. But it's just looking at the timing tower, we've got a few people going around the circuit right now. However, there's no lap times yet. So I wonder what track limits are like around here, Adam. Because, like we said, this is our first time doing it here. So what are the track limits going to be like? Although I would say it's very similar to a British circuit where your track limit is the grass. You put 4 wheels in the grass, you're going to be going around. And there it is. It's Luke Andrews to the top, 1 minute 47.167. It's then Gabardi P2, Votter P3, Kenyan P number 4, Chris van der Nies, the Dutchman, goes P number 2, 0.281 off the top time, which is right now a 1 minute 47.167. Corey Lazarus is going to be an interesting driver to see what he will be able to do. Elias Finoli is also up on their lap time. Bernson goes P2 for this, goes the Swede, and it's P number 2 for them, as Mazomo P number 9 at the moment. So a few AMs there with the elites, as right now it's going to be an interesting lap time. Dean Powell goes P number 5, 0.576 off. Junker goes P11 on board. Corey Lazarus to the top, 146.923. No surprise there from what we've seen across this season. Stefan Bosch did have fastest sector 3 for a moment. However, it seems like he's just lost it to another driver.
Yeah, he has, unfortunately, on that one. But, you know, Corey Lazarus, it looks like he was absolutely lighting up the time as soon as like a disco party as he was heading out there around this circuit. Jason Galloway also approaching the line here at this moment in time, just having a look down. Still some people on a sector time about this moment. The only idea I have is we have a little bar across the word laps. And kind of a percentage of where they are. So, you know, that's really all we're going off. But remember, you know, they're still not very much close to each other. They, you know, they're kind of, it's almost like being in completely different server at this moment in time. But, you know, they're all completely invisible. Stefan Bosch goes up to P2 there for the moment, but Felix Vossers takes back P1 here after his little off, and it's over. Half a second, in fact, 5.5 tenths as well of Chris van der Nies going up to P4. We see the bright yellow and black Porsche there of Mike Pierce. He will pierce over the line, and I wonder where he will go. Matt Strang goes up to 5th. Mike Pierce will go up to, Oscar Bernerton will go to P2. Elias Spinoli up to 3rd. So the two Swedes putting in some really, really strong results. It looked like we saw our driver just go over the line. I'm not sure where he went. Corey Lazarus is back up to the top. So a big fight here for the times. A lot of green sectors here, especially in sector 2. But no purples for this moment in time, unless our production crew can bring up our little graphic where we had all the drivers at the bottom, seeing the sector times, because that gave a great idea of what was going on around the circuit. There it is.
Yeah, Daniel Lee just getting up into P number 4 there. You can see on the bottom of the screen, Felix Votter right now with the purples. Basically, what you're seeing on the bottom of the screen is the live timings in the sectors. If you have the little green boxes, that is a personal fastest within that sector. Yellow means no improvement. But if you are getting purple, that means it is the fastest overall. So unlike in a game with like Formula 1, where it may give you a purple for your new fastest sector, it's green for your fastest, yellow for no improvement, and purple for overall fastest. As Felix Votter does lose out. Corey Lazarus up top, as you did say. Gabardi there, right in the middle of the elites. P number 6, he seems to be loving qualifying at this post-midway point. Up at the P number 4 is Chris van der Nies. Says right now, you can see on the top, there's your fastest times. Gaps of usually about 8 tenths from what we see in elites. That is Gabardi, who does end up going for a spin, just picking up a bit too much grass. Fastest time in elite right now is 1 minute 46.197. Amateur is 146.939. And pro is 147.676. So right now, even though it may be a bit of an outlier, the slowest right now is pro, but that's because they've got 2 AM drivers ahead of them, that being Ricardo Louis Pereira and Gabardi out there. So apart from that, most of the pros are ahead of the AMs. And of course, if you are new and you're watching, or you watch every single week, let us know who you are supporting here this evening. It's Corey Lazarus, who currently sits up top with 8 minute 30 gone, followed by Felix Votter, Oscar Bernson, Chris van der Nies, and then Danny Lee for your top 5. And you can see all the different nationalities: Australia, New Zealand, Sweden, Dutch, German, British, Portugal, Norway, Swiss, and American. So it's an interesting one when it comes down to it. And honestly, props for the Australians being awake.
Yeah, very much so. Of course, they're currently in the very, very early hours of Monday morning, so kudos to those waking up very, very early to play a little bit of iRacing. Hopefully, they're awake for it, and it doesn't feel like they've gone through 24 hours of pain, unlike the drivers that have had to attend the 24 hours of Nürburgring that had finished a couple of hours ago. We now currently looking through the standings. I've been really impressed with Ricardo Luis Pereira, the leader of the category championship. So he's going to be in a really, really strong spot, just sitting in that top 12, which is, yeah, not a bad spot. You know, that's less than half the grid already. We have a couple of drivers, I think, joining in late, that being Katechos and Walsh, who are now in 25th and 26th. No lap time set by them. Yeah, not seeing anything from those two drivers. Meanwhile, the highest American, currently Ed Junker, 21st. We're seeing him on our screens. Is he going to go any higher up into that top 20? He'll blast over the line, and he does improve by time, but not by position. He's got Steve Kleiss just in front of him as well, the Belgian driver, who's looked strong in some circuits, looked a little bit weak in others, and I think in this circuit it's not going to be one that's going to be swooping here. The driver we're on board with here is Stefan Bosch, the Swedish driver, who's up in P11 here, still over 8.5 tenths of Corey Lazarus in both the in similar categories there of the elite class. But let's see what Bosch can do, because he's been looking very, very strong in that practice session, especially in the early stages. The track continues to go up in temperature and grip there. Bosch then closes that up to less than 0.4 of a second, goes on to the second row, critical for his laps there. Also with the 11th minute of this qualifying session, so we're now finding ourselves about just under 4 minutes remaining.
And you got to wonder how many drivers have done their four allowed laps now. How many drivers could be out there on the circuit left? It's an interesting one, especially with the temperature out there. It's partly cloudy weather with a 18-degree ambient temperature, but a 23.89 degrees Celsius track. So it does become an interesting one, as the game says it's 24 degrees. So it's rounded itself up there. But of course, 18-degree ambient, partly cloudy, 24 degree with on the track, dry surface, no rain, and 3 km/h wind. I don't think wind, which is only 3 km/h, is going to be giving too many issues to the drivers. If it was like around 5 miles per hour, so about 15 kilometers, maybe then going down into a braking zone, but I don't think too much, as Willie Blair, unless he's got a major improvement out of that final sector, he's going to be getting a big improvement on the board. No improvement there for him, unfortunately. We have Mike Pierce out there as well, currently P number 19, and it is going to be what is he going to be able to do. From what we're seeing here, is he the last? No, we got Clive Davies as well, so it is quite a long lap time here from what we're seeing, at least for the kind of circuit that it is. Maybe all the squiggles making it an interesting one. But Corey Lazarus is on pole, but you got to remember Felix Votter is not far behind him.
Absolutely not, no. I think a lot of our drivers have already done their lap so far. They've disappeared off into either off into the pit lane, or they are out somewhere else on the circuit. But we see if Mike Pierce and Clyde David can potentially put in a bit of a better lap, both in our AMP categories. So they're going to be slowest of the three classes. I think they're both going to just try and put themselves solidify themselves into the top 20. We'll see if Mike Pierce can do that. I don't think the lap time is going to be very well done so far. He'll cross over the line. We'll wait for the standings to update. He does go P14 1.1 seconds, and then Clive Davis in that beautiful blue Moser Racing Porsche Carrera Cup car will dive through the left-hander in toward the right-hander and try and carry all the speed he possibly can through that final corner. Keep it tight, keep it right up to that white line, and he'll go over the standards. Can he put it into the top 20? We'll wait for it to update. and it looks like he's going to stay there. In fact, so Clive Davis did not improve that time, around 6/10 of his best time, but that will be the qualifying session done here unless we find anyone out there at this moment in time, but it doesn't look like that is going to be so. A really great end to this qualifying session. I see no one else moving on our track map on our laps. It's going to be Corey Lazarus, the New Zealander, who will be up at the top of the standings and with a brilliant opportunity to go and take another win, which could be and result in his 4th victory in a row. You know, you don't get many of those drivers in sim race, but when you do, you just know how special they are, and the runs they can go on are dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. Like the runs here, you can imagine what turn number 1 is going to be like as well. Turn number 1 is going to be a good place for overtaking opportunities, as seems like we're just waiting for the qualifying timer to tick down now. Then we will have then if I'm remembering correctly, we will have a 5-minute cooldown for the drivers, but it's going to be an interesting one here. So we'll wait and see what is going to be happening out there on the circuit, because it does get an interesting one, and the warm-up is now out. We got 5 minutes for the warm-up, and whilst we do wait for the 5 minutes, you can just imagine in iRacing that you can race absolutely anywhere, and that brings us to one of our supporting sponsors, Race Anywhere, as we give a massive thank you for their support of the series. Race Anywhere provides curated high-quality sim racing equipment for the perfectionists, based in Daventry in the United Kingdom, but delivering worldwide, specialising in Sim Magic, Cubic Controls, Sparko, Cobra, Pro Simrig, and more. Visit their showroom to experience exceptional sim racing equipment and take your order home with you, or order online at raceanywhere.co.uk. They are delivering globally, and I do not know if he is out on the circuit, but I'm gonna try and fill an obligation here if we do have Mike Pierce out on the circuit. If he is out on the circuit, I did say an obligation, so I will go through it. And this is a while back. It should show up on the car, the front bumper, and it's a bit of a somber one, but the front bumper, it's an interesting one because it's Chelsea blue. Same on the doors, maybe a little bit of a blue hint, because it's actually to remember his father, because they were massive Chelsea FC fans. So unless the livery is not rendering properly, in fact, I think I saw it. Yeah, you can see it on the front bumper. The little blue hearts, which are on the livery, they're on the bumper, and I believe the rear bumper as well. We will see as we head through the corner. Yes, they are. Those little blue hearts are because the family was Chelsea fans, and of course, this is, in his words himself, it's a bit somber, but around the time the Daniel Lee Porsche Cup was registering, about mid-March, unfortunately his dad, Jamie Pierce, passed away after a very short bout with cancer. He was 60 years old, and you can see the tributes on his car, those are the little blue hearts on it. And he couldn't get it off his mind. His dad used to call him before and after every league race. He wanted to know the ins and outs, how the strategy, how the rival. He wanted the inside scoop. So he's running those little hearts on his cars to commemorate his dad here. And I think that just goes to show, whilst we got sim racing here, it can really be about the absolute passion for it.
And you know, I love drivers who want to carry a little bit of a tribute around them. You know, I'm sure there's been plenty of tributes out there, especially on helmets, on race suits. I know that Jimmy Broadbent carries his granddad's name on the back of his races, so you may find for Laurie, if you see one of Jimmy Broadbent's races and you see him on the race suit, he has it on the back. So I love that. And unfortunately in sim racing we can't do something like a helmet or a race suit, but sometimes I feel like it's better on the car. You're basically carrying that thing around a race circuit, something that you, maybe your family, love doing whilst growing up. And bonds can be so strong. It is usually the father figure that takes their sons or daughters to racetracks and gets them into the sport. When you do have a moment like that, and that they're strong, the bond seems so strong, and that it was just something that Mike had to go and do, and I think that's really, really brilliant. That's something he's gonna carry for the rest of the season, and hopefully further on in the future. And you never know, it might come full circle for Mike. So I really hope that does happen for him. The warm-up session is nearly done, and there's been some really decent times so far. But remember, this is not really something to be, looked into deeply. It's just these drivers in those last laps. It might be something to kind of get themselves in a rhythm. In all honesty, especially with this track, it's so difficult. You need some sort of rhythm around this circuit. You need to hook it up correctly, and in race trim, with a lot of pressure on you, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, as we do see a spinner there, actually. So who is that? We've got Luke Blow, who's coming through this part of the circuit now. Black and red car just in front of him. That is actually going to be Fotis Kachos. So they have had a spin there. Seemingly they kept it going, so just getting a bit more climatized to the circuit. Timing board goes off, driver's RTG, and that is it for that. We got the race coming up, Adam. What are your predictions here before we get ready for the race?
Well, Corey Lazarus has been so competitive, but also, Felix Votta, and here at the grid, it's going to be Corey Lazarus on pole position ahead of Felix Votta. These two being so competitive, with Chris van der Nies in third place, and Stefan Bosch, the Swedish driver, in P4. Oscar Benetton will be in P5. On the third row of the grid, he'll be joined by George Tyler, with Danny Lee in 7th and Elias Spinoli in P7. Then we find the first of our AM category drivers, Avesa Gabadi in P9, and Luke Andrews rounding at the top 10 with Simon Mezzomo and Matt Strand in P12.
Yeah, and then the rest of the grid order does go as follows. We'll try to get through it before the lights are on. It's Ricardo Louis Pereira, P number 13, Mike PSP number 14, followed by Powell, Blair, Blow, Kenyon, Clyde, Vivas, Junker, Davies, Fellows, and Galloway we got two of the American drivers there. As the board does go off, I think we've still got a few drivers to get on the grid, but we do look to them now. So about 24 drivers out there tonight, and it's going to be an interesting one. It is the Virginia International Raceway. It's a 45-minute race here. All eyes now go to the lights here in Virginia. Green flag drops, we are racing, and that's going to be a very, very good start for Felix Votta on the race start. Corey Lazarus, not so much, already dropping back a little bit further. Who is going to hold on? Turn number 1's going to be an interesting opportunity. Chris van der Nies also there. Down the inside, looks for Oscar Bernson, so does he go through. Gabardi also going to be out there on the outside, seemingly falling a little bit further back. Simon Mazzone will gain past Finoli as well. Through the left-hander, onto the timing. Sector 1, done and dusted. Felix starts to drive away. Bernson on the back of Chris van der Nies. Going to have Corey Lazarus right there as well. Stefan Bosch. Danny Lee is going to be locked in this bar with Stefan, and off into the grass. Big spin there for Finoli, it seems, and he is down and round. No, that's not Finoli, that's somebody else who's dropped further back. Apologies about that. Finoli, P number 13, it was Bosch who went round, down into P number 24. Unlucky, down they go. Galloway is out of this session as well, so they will not be proceeding through this race. Ricardo Louis Pereira up 2 places right now, but nearly almost a second gap for Felix Votta, as we do see Kate Schoss getting past Pierce there. You see it on the timing board, 20 positions down is Bosch, but 8 positions up. Most so far is going to be Kate Schoss at P number 17, and that is how you do an opening lap. A little bit of chaos there, but it is going to be unlucky for them making their way through. Everybody's up, everybody's looking for it. We have also Steve Clyde, who is up 7 positions in this race. Felix Votta, Chris van der Nies and Bernson picking up mega starts there. Corey Lazarus losing out 3 positions, but now Chris van der Nies is going to be on the defensive here, because here comes Oscar Bernson.
Absolutely, down in towards the horseshoe once again for the second time this race, and Oscar Bernerton very much going to start feeling the pressure. They go side by side there, and Chris Van Liet is just going to put his nose in front of the Swedish driver, and he's going to have to back out of that one for this moment in time. But these guys are very much battling hard. What about the battle for 10th here? Because that's looking so strong. Steve Kleiss just in the background there, but you see all these cars still fighting for any form of position. You can see there on the left hand side, Kleiss has gone up 7. It looks like Kate Choss has gone up 8 as well, so really looking strong in that one. Elias Vignoli unfortunately down 3 from his position, and it was Stefan Bosch involved in that collision, and that means he's down 18. Jeremy Walsh has not set a single lap time this race, and still trying to battle for the lower part of the race. And Simon Menzomo looks a little bit slow out of that one. He's getting absolutely gamed on here by Luke Blow. They head their way now in towards the double right-hander. It's going to be so difficult. It is a passing opportunity. Let's not take it down. You just need to be so strong on that inside line and let your opposition know you're there. Otherwise, there'll be a little bit of an interesting collision there. And Chris Van Den Ees is already under pressure now from Oscar Bernerton.
Most definitely. Corey Lazarus also lurking in the background as Matt Strand gets past Luke Andrews a little bit further back, as you can see on the timing tower. Through the right-hander, heavy braking. Lovely move there by Ricardo Louis Pereira around the outside and heading into the braking zone. So that is it done and dusted. You see Gabardi there as well. He's got Matt Strand behind him. We saw this at Snetterton. We saw this at Donington. Louis Gabardi is one of those drivers who seems to thrive around these type of circuits. What the circuits where there is just track and greenery, he seems to come into the absolute mode, and he is looking for a ride. But he's got Matt Strand, the elite driver, right behind him. But of course, the classifications aren't by racing skill. It's simply purely based on iRacing. If I'm remembering correctly, the AM drivers that is a big lock-up and big smoke there in the background. That is Simon Mazzomo with the Windows 8 profile, and they are off again, so he is not having a good time here. But if I'm remembering correctly, off the top of my mind, we're going to get a replay here, Adam.
We are indeed. We'll have a look and see what happened with Simon Mazzomo, because of course he had that little bit of an issue on the middle sector. He's just lost it on his own, and the black and orange Porsche that became a bit of an innocent victim in all that. So it was just a straight up lose on his own there for Simon Mazzomo, and that's going to drop him all the way back down to 21st. But I'm hearing that he potentially got a slowdown, and who's that? That's Oscar Bernerton. Oscar Bernerton has gone round there. I think he may have had a collision there with Chris Van Den Ees, who he was battling with in the earlier stages. He's going to drop right down. He's got to stay out of out of everyone's way. There's damage there on the back end of the Porsche, and Oscar Bernerton is going to be so frustrated with themselves. That's going to be so unfortunate for the Swedish driver who looked so strong in the earlier stages in practice.
You also see just in front of him Luke Blow going for the move on Kate Choss, and it looks like they've got it done almost wheel to wheel, side by side there momentarily. Lovely move there by Luke Blow. Andrew's getting past Louis Pereira up towards the front, as well as everybody's making their way through single file. The question is I've got, was that contact for Oscar Bernerton? Because it does seem like it, because there's a barrier there, so it's pretty interesting to see what happens. As we do now have the replay, this is what happens, and Oscar Bernerton chasing down Chris Van Den Ees, coming up into the right-hander, and actually no, it's not Chris Van Den Ees, it's with Corey Lazarus. So it looked like Corey was going for the move down the inside, but I think that was just trying to go for a dive bomb. As we get the onboard here through the left-hander, does he think he can go for the move down the inside? Yes, he can. Surely Oscar knows he's there, but I think that's just an unfortunate thing of braking zones.
Yeah, that didn't seem too right to me at this moment in time. Just having a look back at that and see what I'm thinking. Just seemed like he kind of broke towards the race 9, didn't expect to gain that much on Oscar Bernardson, and then by the time he realised that he was right in the rear of him, they were already colliding and sending Oscar Bernardson off to Narnia. But Mike Pierce are now looking out with the tributes that we mentioned earlier. He's now trying to fight for the top 15, which is a very, very strong place to be for the... Oh, we've got Matt Strand. Matt Strand's gone round. That was very, very unexpected there. And it looks like the Norwegian has been involved in a collision. I'm sure we'll get a replay of that in a moment. In fact, we go to it now. Down in towards that double right-hander. Has he been hit? Has he had a bit of a collision? And it looks like down in toward the right-hander. Is he going to lose it on his own? Yep, just too much speed into the double right-hander. And you're off the road. And when you get on the grass, there's very little in saving that. It's so difficult to be able to save those types of moments, and unfortunately for him, he dropped himself all the way down the field.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those unfortunate things. You go on the grass, you're losing all your grip that you have in those tyres. So you're going to have to hope for the best when it comes down to it. We do now mean we've got Finoli, who had a moment on lap number 1, versus Matt Strand as well. So it's an interesting one between two elite drivers here towards the back of the pack. And that is going to be up and done as... Oh, that is a spin around. And what has happened here as we see Elias Finoli here as... Oh, he makes his way through. He has to cut the grass there. You can just... Oh! Whoa, that was a big one. Luckily enough, he didn't take anybody else out with him. I just realised there's a learner play on the back of that car.
That's a really good detail in that one. Oh, that's someone else off. That's Ed Junker, the American driver who was looking pretty high there. I think qualified 14th. Oh, that looks like suspension damage to me. The front looks absolutely bent in, and I wonder if there's any potential suspension damage. Meanwhile, after all of this chaos, Felix Votter leads away 0.2 of a second ahead of Chris Vandenese. Remember, we're in iRacing, so no safety cars. There's no going to be neutralizations. It's Felix Votter against the world, and Felix Votter is winning in this one. Danny Lee, meanwhile, is up to P3. Really, really good effort from him after starting, I believe it was 7th place. Meanwhile, Steve Clays there is holding up an absolute train. I think, sorry, this is actually Gabadi, the Ukrainian in P6 there. Again, as I say, holding up an absolute train in front of him. But Steve Clays up 12 places. Hopefully he can hold on to this, but he's got a very, very competitive Luke Andrews here. He's going to look to be potentially steaming up the inside. Let me just make sure I've got my numbers right on this one. And it looks like it is Luke Andrews on that inside line. Is going to have that position of Steve Clay. And it looks like Ricardo Luis Pereira is also going to fly on by. And I think just opened the door a bit too wide. And Luis Pereira did not need a second invitation in that one. The Portuguese driver flying up high into the top 8 here. And that's going to be superb efforts there from the amateur driver. He must have done a little practice around here, unless he's just immediately got attached to the circuit really, really quickly and found a really good setup and rhythm.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be one of the things, like, can you get into a rhythm around here when there's so many cars, as we see Gabbardi here as well. Here's the thing. Luke Andrews will want to get past Gabbardi, because if he wants more points, he's got to go and chase down Tyler and Lazarus and Leon and all the rest of the elite drivers. However, because points are done by category, Gabbardi wants to defend because Luis Pereira is behind Andrews. So if he can keep Andrews behind him, that's another car that Luis Pereira, the Portuguese driver, will have to get through. But right now, it seems like Luke Andrews is finally going to look for it, goes by, gets it done. Lovely, jubbly, sound as a pound. And that is now it done and dusted. And now that opens up Gabbardi to Luis Pereira, who is up 5 positions since this race starts. Same with Steve Kleiss. So it's going to be an interesting one here. It's going to be the Ukrainian versus the Portuguese driver as they head down towards the start-finish line here. But he's still got to be careful, as a little bit further back as well, you can see Kleiser's Bernson on the back of him. Bernson still trying to fight his way back through after that moment, after that incident he had earlier on with Corey Lazarus, and just getting pinched at the curve there with Dean Powell behind them as well. And same with the story of Gabbardi there, who was trying to defend against Luke Andrews. Clyde will want to defend against Burnson because Dean Powell is right behind Burnson, so they want to put as much there's as much thought and as many cars trying to get in between them as possible. But right now it's about the P number 8 within 1.5 seconds. It's Louis Pereira, Clyde, Burnson, Powell and Blair all locked in this battle for 8th position in the overall standing. As you see on the left hand side, as we're 7 laps deep and we're nearly a quarter of an hour into this race, nearly 1/3 through. As you can see the leaders in all the categories on the top. For the elite category, it's going to be Felix Votter. For Am, it's Gabardi. For Pro, it's Clyde. Here comes Burnson, looks for it, maybe going around the outside. Not enough time, up and under. Not going to work that time either there, Adam.
No, absolutely on that one. He's still looking to potentially work a move. We have a new driver with the fastest lap of the race, and that goes to Corey Lazarus, of course, the pole sitter, who has not had the best opening 10 to 12 minutes of this race. And the all-white Porsche is now starting to try and hunt down Danny Lee, but of course both of them have some really good pace, setting personal bests. But unfortunately for Corey Lazarus, it was actually the best lap so far this session, so he's really trying to chase down. And again, I think he's looking for like 4/10 faster than Danny Lee here, and this is going to be a very competitive lap. And there you see on the left hand side, and of course Luke Andrews also going for a personal best as well, 147.9 there on that time around. He's sitting there in the top 6 of Clays and Bernison switching places, but there's been some really good action here. Meanwhile, we look back to said action as Steve Clays very much under pressure here from Oscar Bernison. Bernison's going to try that inside line, still got that fire in his belly from when it was pushed off the track there by Corey Lazarus, and I think that fire in his belly is going to very much be a positive from him. He's got to take that and absolutely run with it. There's some drivers that absolutely go like the wind when they have a fire in their belly. A really good example that I found, Tom Ingram for the British Touring Car Championship. Back at Donington last year, got involved in a collision, had to go from the back all the way to the front and managed to finish second in his next race. You know, there's some drivers who benefit with a fire in his belly. I think Oscar Bernison might be one of those drivers.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about Tom Ingram last year. I think one of those new drivers in BTCC as well, back on the grid this year, Daniel Lloyd, because he is on a roll at the moment. It's just a shame of all the technical difficulties that he's been getting recently. Although, here in the Daniel Lee Porsche Cup, I think the only technical difficulty you're going to struggle with is if your wheel decides to disconnect.
Yeah, that's something you very rarely see in racing. It's happened before, but you know, it's a very rare a chance of that happening. Meanwhile, having a look at Luke Blow for a second there, we look back to Felix Votter. His gap has now opened up to 3.5 seconds. Our leader very much in the flow of everything in this moment in time. Chris Vandenese doesn't have any form of a struggle behind, and you can see that the gap has very much been opening up ever since the 5 red lights went out, and he's just continuously gained, and it's just been opening up the gap, and that just shows a man with almost over 9.5K in iRacing. That's exactly what you get. As Sylvester Gabardi now starting to feel in the pressure. This is a very important battle here, because this is the Ukrainian in the lead of the AN category up against the second place in the AN category of Ricardo Luis Pereira. Pereira will be very much looking to take the lead here, but where will he do it? It'll potentially be down at maybe even turn 11, I think it will be, because look at how much he's gaining in that toe here. Up the hill they go, trying to get all the curves, all the apexes here. And also you got Oscar Bernison, who's looking to try and follow a way through here. So if he finds an opportunity, he's actually going to send that machine up the inside here. Lovely little onboard. I think it's the first time we've had an onboard here in the series, as far as I'm aware. Bernison, you can see here how strong he is through the corners. He's just got to try and maximize it and just follow in that slipstream.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find that slipstream, and to be fair, you see other racing series which have like different classifications of cars. It can be very hard to get a slipstream due to how different the cars are. They're going to be punching different holes in the air. However, with these cars, they're all exactly the same. And of course, they do have ABS, but they've got no traction control. So you've got exactly the same car, exactly the same limitations. So I'm gonna use a Top Gun quote here. It's not the plane, it's the pilot, or in this case, it's not the car, it's the driver. So it really comes down into it as we see Luis Pereira there go down the inside for the lead in that category. Up and under by Gabardi, and that is Burnson round. That is unlucky for him. He's had one spin already. He's going to have a double, and it is going to be extremely unlucky for him. Did he get a bit too trigger happy with it? That is unfortunate and done. As we do get the replay here. Yeah, we do get the replay. Does he get trigger happy here? It's going down the inside. Gabardi is there. I'd say that's a race. I would say that's a racing incident there.
It is a very, very difficult choice because, you know, Oscar Bernison wasn't fully alongside. He was just trying to poke his nose in, and then that gap just evidently shut. I don't know if you can argue that Luis Pereira was allowed to close that door, but, you know, when he's not at all. He's probably on the bumper more like, in all honesty. So I don't want to put any blame down here, but let's leave it and see what the stewards say. Meanwhile, this is a big old battle because it's the lead for the YAM category. Gabardi against Luis Pereira. They head their way in towards the chicane section they go, and then they'll find their way on towards the main straight in just a moment's time. Will Ricardo Luis Pereira have that slipstream? He needs that exit. You can see, have a look on the left-hand side, how much grass that's been dug up and how much mud would have flown onto the racing circuit here. Ricardo Luis Pereira now has to try and find a gap here, but I don't know if he's going to be able to do so. As he heads his way now into the right-hander. Oh, he's just not quite there, but someone who is there, that's Powell against Steve Clays. Clays, I think, out wide on that part, or might be getting the cars wrong. I'm indeed wrong. It is Powell, in fact, so my apologies on that one. Dean Powell now down to 2P10, but Steve Kleiss very much on the up here, really trying to fight to put himself into that top 8 ahead of these two AM category drivers. This is a big old battle. This is 15th and Finoli Bernitz, Ken on and Strand in this one. So two of these drivers have been involved in incidents, two of them being the Scandinavians, and whilst we saw them pretty much near the top in the practice session, the two Swedes lay 15th and 16th. Not ideal for any of the Scandinavian fans we potentially have in the live stream. Look back here to Chris Vandenese, and this is a battle that's going to be brewing for, I think, in the majority of the race. Has there been something happen here? Oh, that's Luis Pereira. Luis Pereira potentially being hit round here. I think that we need a bit of a replay on that one. I just saw his a couple of names go in, highlighted in red. I wonder if there was a bit of battle. Let's have a look. See, in toward the double right-hander. We've seen so many accidents happen in these latter stages. He's done the same thing as Strand. He's done the exact same thing as Strand. Oh, he got a hit there off the front there of one of the drivers. That might have been Dean Powell, it seemed like. Big old hit there because he's now dropped from what would have been 9th down to 12th here, riding on board with Dean Powell. Does he have anywhere to go? No, he's also got himself a little bit loose into towards the corner there. He just saw the steering just being cast out wide, and by the time he saw there was a red Porsche spinning round, there was no way he could react to that, unfortunately for him. And again, it just shows kind of the mess that's happening around Virginia. Some are surviving, some are sinking.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that is very unfortunate when it comes down to the racing. The spun around Porsche, which was on its own, just kind of appeared out of nowhere because the other car was able to take evasive action on the corner normally. As we do have Corey Lazarus closing in on Danny Lee, and it's going to be an interesting one here because you're going to see the deltas as well. So how are they going to work out? As Corey Lazarus is fastest on the circuit at this moment in time, are they going to look for a move down the inside, possibly a bit too far back? But of course, you get all this information from racing against each other, but it can also be put into different kinds of apps, and that's where we give a big thank you to Coach Dave Academy and Coach Dave Delta for being a supporting sponsor of this series. Coach Dave Delta with Auto Insights is a setup, data analysis and AI coaching app for iRacing, ACC and Le Mans Ultimate and even GT7. Remove the mystery and stay ahead of your rivals with Delta by Coach Dave. Go to CoachDaveAcademy.com. And the reason why I brought up this information of all these battles is because it just comes down to it. It's all the entrants have been offered a 1-month coupon for Coach Dave Delta subscription, and Danny will be sharing lap data and analysis using the Delta app in the series. So even though you're battling against these guys, you're still going to know the information from what is happening both in your race and around the circuit, which makes it quite an interesting combination. So these little fights here, they're not really for nothing.
They're not. There's still a lot of points up for grabs here, and I think you've just got to go out and fight for them, no matter who it is. Unless maybe it's a lot faster car, then maybe just take on your position. But a lot of these drivers are not afraid to back down in a fight, even if you're the likes of Oscar Bernison. You've been involved in a couple of collisions so far this race. You know, you're still not going to be scared to go out and give it your all and try and see if you can salvage something from this race. I think that's going to be where some of the mindsets of these drivers are going to be. And of course, you're going to be tested every single race. Of course, every single race you're going to be tested with something different. You know, whether that be mentally, whether that be physically, whether that be your awareness, or you may find something that you need to improve, or may find something about a circuit that you didn't know before you joined the race. And you know, you're learning every single time. I think that's what these drivers are taking, apart from maybe a great result or a completely different result. Meanwhile, the Vestagobardi very much in a very, very good rhythm, holding up at Steve Kleiss and Mizomo, two classes that are in fact higher than his. So he's doing an absolutely stunning job leading this AM category. He's second place in the AM category is Ricardo Luis Pereira, and of course, because he's had his incident on himself, he's unfortunately now fallen down to 17th. Here comes Mizomo, Simon Mizomo, who of course had a bit of an incident at some point during this one. He is still now trying to look at passing Steve Kleiss in this one, as we now see Wiley Blair. He also got involved, I think, in an earlier incident as well, right within the first 5 minutes of this race. But it does seem like they're now starting to find themselves into a little bit of a rhythm. They head their way now in towards the snaking section and on toward the S's. I think there's been some really, really good stuff there. Steve Clay still leading that pro category ahead of Dean Powell, ahead of Wiley Blair. So that's a battle we're seeing, in fact, with Powell and Blair. Well, they're separated by 0.2 of a second, and so the battles are very much not over. They're still going on. It's just about playing that little game of chess with each individual driver and seeing how you can work the car around this circuit.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely, and we're seeing all these battles happen. I think the circuit really makes it so that these battles can continue happening. At least with these small Porsche Cup cars. If it was a Formula 1 car, I wouldn't say so much, because they are big old boats. But these little Porsche Cup cars, which are nice and nimble, can throw the car around. You can really get these battles which do keep on ongoing. Speaking of battles, we have Chris Van der Nies, who has finally got past Danny Lee, and he is into P2, but Felix Votter opens it up to 5 seconds at that exact moment. Danny Lee now there up against him as well, Corey Lazarus. So it looks like we're going to have a three-way fight for P2 very soon. We've got the number 88 of Danny Lee versus the 32 of Chris Van der Nies and the number 4 of Corey Lazarus. And this is the thing, Corey Lazarus wants to get through these two as quickly as possible, because his championship rival is all the way up in P1 at this moment in time. So it comes down to, are these three drivers going to be working together to try and catch up to Felix Votter, or are they just going to have to continue this battle as we see Pierce on the board as well, getting past Viers, Louis Pereira getting past Blow, Viers and Pierce once again battling together around the outside. It looked like it was going to go for it was Mike Pierce, but a little bit too much. That'll give him an inside line into the next corner though. The yellows and the blacks fighting against each other, and it is a lovely little fight between these two drivers here at Virginia. Into the left-hander again, tries to stick his nose in, did not work out that time either. We've only had one retirement in this race, that being Galloway in P number 26. P number 25 is 1 minute 28 seconds down, but that's not too bad as there we go. Corey Lazarus has got the move done, or has he? Daniel Lee is going to fight back with him, but that is done and dusted. Corey Lazarus back up into P number 3 now, and he is fighting his way through because he started on pole, but he has not had a good race so far. He's having a fight through the field, and he's got just under 20 minutes remaining to do so in this race. Daniel Lee right behind him, and he's trying to get that move done again around the outside. Does make his intentions clear, and Corey Lazarus quite dutifully responds in kind. That is a lovely fight that is happening between these drivers, but that's now giving Chris Van Der Nies an opportunity to start to drive away a little bit. That gap, which was a few tenths, has now opened up to a second.
Absolutely, and he's now going to try and launch himself on a really good time. Of course, was 6 tenths slower than Chris Van Der Nies last time around, but that's of course because he was having a big old ding dong with Danny Lee, and now he gets to escape down the road. But you can see that Chris Van Der Nies is at 5.3 seconds there to Felix Voss, so very little chance here. And I wonder if Danny Lee's in fact got any momentum up the hill he goes, and then maybe into his double right-hander, but he's starting to lose a little bit of time here. Did a 47.9 last time around, so that was 2 tenths slower compared to Corey Lazarus. And you just know that Corey Lazarus is so fast around the circuit. He set the pole time in qualifying. He's had a bit of a horrible first half of this race, but he's really trying to work it now to work his way to potentially second place here. We now look back to Stefan Bosch here, who's now behind Simon Mizomo. These two are in the same class here, so they've got to be careful with each other and just grab the points they have. This is the battle for P9 on the road here, and I wonder if they're going to potentially get to Steve... no, that's not Steve Clays, my apologies on that one. That's Dean Powell and Wiley Blair behind the Brit and the Australian respectively, and I think Blair is going to potentially have a look to see if he can potentially send Powell off the road. But now Powell is going to be up the inside, I thought, for a second there, of Stefan Bosch. So it's starting to get a little bit harem square here, and now Wiley Powell is going to have a big opportunity here to go through on the Englishman. I think there's been a really good opportunity here, and he set this up super well here through this end section, and he's right on the grass to see if he can potentially open up an opportunity in towards the horseshoe. But unfortunately for him, Powell has just covered that off, and he's gonna have to set that up all over again. Really good racing there from Wiley Blair, just not got the final product.
Can't get the final product, but it is going to be an interesting one. That is the battle for P number 2 in that category. But right now we do watch Jeremy Walsh. This is the battle between him and Vivas, who is just in front of him, and they are trying to make their way through. Separated by 2 tenths at this current moment, now 3 tenths, now 4 tenths. You get the idea. But that looks like he was going to try to get a launch on the exit. Unfortunately, did not work out for him. So how are these drivers going to fare here? As right now, Chris Van Der Nies 6 seconds down, but it is Corey Lazarus who has now ended up on the back of him. He's got away from Danny Lee, and the Australian is now closing in. It's the Kiwi behind who's trying to make his way through, but not there either. It's unfortunate and it's unlucky, but he is all over the rear bumper. You can see him over the rear wing, and in that rear view mirror of the Manatee Racing team car, it's going to be quite an interesting one as they now head down the main straight here at the Virginia International Raceway, and this is a heck of a race that we've seen so far. And this battle for P2 is only going to heat it up even more down into turn number 1. They do now go. Felix Votter leads, followed by Chris Van der Nies, and then Corey Lazarus rounds out the overall podium. Daniel Lee, P4 with Tyler, P5. P6 is Luke Andrews, with P7 overall being Gabardi. P8 overall being Steve Kleiss, but of course Gabardi leading in AM, Kleiss leading in Pro. Then in P7 but 9 overall is Mazomo for Elite, and then it's Bosch who rounds out the overall top 10. Up against them now, still trying to get past Mazomo is Bosch, and he's been trying this entire race for like the last 10 minutes. However, it just seems he is unable to get that car, get past the Australian just in front of him. As I'm going to do a correction here, it is Mazomo who's Australian, as Blair and Burnson are red for a moment, but it seemed like it's fixed it there. So I'm gonna do a quick correction on myself here. Oh, big into the barrier! You can see the bumper off. We didn't see a good angle. Hopefully we'll get a replay. Was it on his own or was it a bump? That is a big moment, and the bumper did come off. It seems like it's back on the car now, but you saw it flying. There was a bumper flying on somebody's car. It's up against Gabardi here. Coming through the right-hander is Steve Kleiss. What happens? I think, yeah, he just loses it on the curb. The bumper does come off, and it's in that part there. It's back on the car. But it's just that part of the circuit where one mistake on a curb and you're into the barrier. RTG Kleiss is out of this race.
That's so unfortunate for him as well. That's going to be heartbreaking for Steve Kleiss and Simon Mazomo. Oh, that's a big old send there from Oscar Bernison. Bernison still with that fire in his belly, and he's still going to go for it and absolutely sent the move there on the Australian on that one. I think Mazomo is going to be limping for the remainder of this race, but he's only got about 12 minutes left. It shouldn't be too bad, but obviously wants to grab as many possible points that he can get. Steve Powers now going to be feeling the pressure here as he now gets overtaken here by Stefan Bosch, and Bosch on that inside line is going to nab that P8 position. Great move there from the elite driver, and they pass their way through, and he's now going to have to try and just potentially close that gap up to Gabardi, who of course was very, very fortunate to not be involved in that incident with Steve Kleiss. And overall he's been running a pretty decent race. You know, there's nothing to complain about here for Gabardi. You know, super strong, great pace, nothing to kind of point a finger at, apart from all positive so far. But this is the real battle I think we're seeing from Bosch, from Powell, from Blair, from Bernison with Mazomo, then Finoli, Strand as well in there. These guys are all going to be trying to find a little bit of space and grabbing as many points as they possibly got. The tyre life has very much gone down a little bit, but now this is a battle we're going to have to keep an eye out for. Chris Van der Nies and Corey Lazarus. The battle for second here is going to be so important in the race. Corey Lazarus has had a very, very difficult race. He's not got the best exit here on the Dutchman of Chris Van der Nies. He's going to have to try an absolute big old send. A Daniel Ricciardo-esque dive bomb in toward the horseshoe. He closes, but that white Porsche still remains behind the black and green of Chris Van der Nies. Holding so well is the Dutchman, and he's just got to try and stick there for another 10 minutes.
He's got to try stick there. It's just under a 2-minute lap time, so about 6 or 7 laps will now remain in this race. Pearson Walsh, actually, the Brit and the Polishman going for a battle, but it looks like PS is also going to look for a move on Kachos as they head around and through this section. It's a battle for P number 18 as Matt Strand gets past Simon Mazomo, the Norwegian getting past the Aussie, and it is nice and clean up there as these drivers are all making their way through. 24 drivers still remain in this race down the main straight, wheel to wheel, side by side. Don't go free wide as Walsh is going to sit back and watch, but it's Fotis Kachos versus Mike PS. Mike PS is looking, he's going to get it, and he will have it by turn number 1, but very, very deep. And looking for the switch was Walsh. However, he does not go for it, and that's going to be unfortunate for him. Just a little bit too late on the brakes for Mike, or maybe a lockup And that is going to be it. Round the go. That was hard. We'll leave that to the stewards because that was a very, very tricky one there. I don't think that was intentional. Maybe losing it, as we may get a replay, and it looked very, very tricky over the curves here. Here we go. We get a replay of this then. So we're on board with Mike Pierce heading through this section of the circuit, and just the contact once that half spins him, catches it, and he ends up going into the little rear left bumper and spinning around the red Porsche. So not much they could really do there. So I think that's fully on Mike, but we'll leave it to the stewards, as of course you've also got to remember they'll probably be needing a bit of engineering fixing after that, as of course a big thank you to Grid Engineering by SimLab for their support on the series as a supporting sponsor. Grid Engineering provides a wide range of top tier sim racing products, including Porsche licensed equipment to provide the ultimate motorsports experience in your simulator. Find the full range at gridengineering.com, and this is probably the biggest one of the draws. One Porsche 911 GT3 Cup console will be awarded to one of the competitors at the end of the season in a draw. Imagine that, having a Porsche 911 GT3 Cup console to use for your little buttons like starting your engine.
Oh, that'll be absolutely great for these guys. I'm sure they'll be absolutely loving that. Whoever receives it. So best of luck to all the drivers in here. Meanwhile, Oscar Berneton is hoping for a little bit of luck here, trying to pass Wiley Blair. Wiley Blair is not giving this up too easy, but he's giving an opportunity here. And the Swedish driver still trying to charge through and grab whatever points he possibly can. Will fly on through here and up to P10 with the straight line speed. Still got the damage to the rear that he sustained very, very early on in the early stages of this race, and Berneson will fly home there in towards P10 he goes. Next on his hit list is going to be Dean Powell, but will he be able to get through to him with the remaining minutes of this race? 7 to be exact.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, isn't it? You've only got so much time left on the clock. You don't have another race to go through, so you got to get your business done here. As in the pit lane is Elias Finoli. So is that an issue, or is that just he's run out of fuel? Louis Pereira is going to pick up so many positions there. Bosch gets past Gabardi finally. Dean Powell also there in the back. He was a little bit hidden by the timing tower, but Elias Finoli I think he had to do a splash and dash. I think he ran out of fuel there.
Oh, that would have been unfortunate there at this moment in time. But yeah, Finoli had a bit of an interesting pit entry there. Not quite sure what happened here. Meanwhile, Chris Van der Nies is under a lot of pressure here from Corey Lazarus. You look behind the rear here of Van der Nies in the forward, just gaining. There goes Lazarus to the outside line. This is going to be very bold, very, very brave. Slide draft here, down in toward the tight section. Is he going to have to send Chris Van der Nies wide? There's contact between the two, and Van der Nies has sent Lazarus wide. And it looks like the white Porsche will eventually get through, but not the way he would have wanted to. That would have very, very, very not ideal way there for Lazarus. He's made the move there. Will that be investigated? I wonder. I think he was just a fully out braking there from Chris Van der Nies. It was Corey Lazarus just being smart. Van der Nies was trying to be last of the late breakers, and unfortunately for him, just went into the side of the New Zealander. We'll have a look, see what's happened here with Chris Van der Nies. We get a great perspective here to the left-hand side. There goes Corey Lazarus. They're side by side. They're wheel to wheel, and it's such a difficult corner there. You see the smoke, you see the lockup, and just goes straight there into Corey Lazarus, still understeering with the Dutchman, and let through Corey Lazarus. And well, that was a very dramatic moment on this race.
Yeah, I don't think that's how Corey would have wanted to take P2, but I don't think he will say no to it. You saw it already happening. Corey Lazarus wasn't out to the space. It was the lockups that caused that. You saw the smoke rising, once going up the hill and once into the corner. So that's extremely unfortunate there. However, That is now with a potential, but Danny Lee back into this. Corey Lazarus may end up holding up Chris Van der Nies here if Chris does catch up. And we've got 5 minutes left on the clock. So it is now or never as Elias Finoli is out of this session in the pit lane. So what has happened to Elias Finoli here? We will get a replay coming down towards turn number 1. What happens here? He's on his own. There's a car in the background, but going through the corner, and that's an interesting one. It seemed like he started turning, but then straight on. So that is an interesting one. He may have just called it a day, but right now, one man who has not called it a day is this man, Felix Votter. Let's have a look at the gaps. Look at how big it is. From lap 17 to lap 22, the gap was coming down. It slowly went back up. And because of that collision between Corey Lazarus and Chris Van der Nies, it is now flown up to 9 seconds. So it's one of those things where it just gets really interesting towards the end, and it just goes to show really how your race can still be affected by others on the track, whether that be for the good or the bad. As of course going through this very section, we saw a car go off and spin it, losing the front bumper earlier on in the race. So it's just one of those things where you got to be careful of those around you, as Luke Andrews is still looking to get past George Tyler. They've been going at it for quite a few laps now, and if you can't tell by the liveries, this is going to be an inter-team battle, so I don't think there's team orders here. You may get the reference, but it looks like we're going to have papaya rules here, as these guys are having an absolute fight into these final few moments. It may be just one of those, like, it's towards the end, so it's just like, go at it, see who comes out on top.
I would have gone with multi-21 on this one, but looks like George Tyler is going to be very much feeling the pressure here from Luke Andrews. It's a very similar situation to what we saw in the battle for second, but it just looks like Luke Andrews did not get that exit that he wanted out of that right-hander, and on toward the back stretch they go. They'll look towards this very difficult corner, and now you're seeing Luke Andrews is starting to gain, but in towards this right-hander. It's a very, very difficult corner. It's not a place you can overtake there, but it has to be bold, brave, and you know, let your opponent know you're there. As Luis Pereira had a bit of a moment here, but I think it's just that he's running on his own. We've got a replay here, in fact, of Luis Pereira down in toward this very, very tricky braking zone to the left, to the right. Oh, the rear's gone on him again. The rear's gone on him again. I think that was just straight up loss of the rear. You know, nothing special in that one. Maybe too hot into the corner, and Luis Pereira is having an ugly day. He is still sitting second in his class, but you know, he's 6 seconds ahead of Kenyon. So very much these two drivers are really going to be fighting it out, and I think that these guys are, I think for now, Luis Pereira is going to be sitting in that second place in his class, but it very, very easy could have been the lead. Meanwhile, Fotis Kichos done very little laps around here in VIR, joining the Cervelet, but still fighting for 18, which is not too bad, because when you look at the bigger picture, he's sitting 5th in his class. But yeah, for a moment we thought that he'd unfortunately had a server disconnect, which would be not unfortunate, but he's still on the road here. And looking back to this Cube Controls Reparto Corse battle here, George Tyler's gone a little bit wide here, and I wonder if Luke Andrews is now going to find the opportunity to go through here on his teammate here. He will gain in that section, gain in the toe, down the back straight he goes. It's round 2 to these drivers here, and I wonder if you're going to try something a little bit nice with this one around the outside. Oh, this is going to get a little bit tough here. George Tyler's now going to have to play fair, and it looks like Luke Andrews is going to just keep on that inside line. Don't touch, boys. Don't touch, boys. Don't touch, boys. Oh, it's so incredibly close, but Luke Andrews was impeccable in that one. Cuts in front of his teammate. George Tyler will have to carry on with this one. He will look now around the outside of the horseshoe. Just don't touch, boys. I'm sure they'll be absolutely squeamish on the pit wall here. In toward the horseshoe they go. Who's going to emerge out in front of this one? Tyler around the outside. He doesn't have the grip. Slides out wide. Luke Andrews will sit up into P5. A brilliant battle between the two drivers.
Most definitely, and they've got one more chance to go at it, as right now we're watching Gabardi versus Burnson. Burnson finally gets that move done. The real question I have, though, where is Felix Votter? Because he's nearly 9 seconds ahead of the rest of the grid. So where is he going to be out there on the circuit? And he's actually coming into the final 2 sectors. So Felix Votter, since lap 1, has been on an absolute ride here. The German, the number 33, his championship rival, had to fight back through the field, but Felix stays in the lead. He is going to hold on to this like an absolute madman, but it's done with an absolute beauty. We went from Britain, we come to America, we've done it twice this season, and he's done it twice this season. 2 45-minute races, one at Road Atlanta, one at Virginia, and it is checkered, checkered, checkered. Felix Votter wins at the Virginia International Raceway, and that will extend his championship lead without a doubt. Corey Lazarus settles for P2, Chris Van Den Ees P3, Daniel E P4, Gabardi is going to come home, P number 9 overall. But that does not really matter because he still gets max points in his category. So he has had an absolutely amazing night. But we still got a battle further back. Junker versus Vivas. They're going up against each other. Gabardi, Dean Powell right behind him as well. Round the final few corners. Take a bow, gentlemen. Gabardi P9 overall. P1 in class. Dean Powell rounds out the top 10 overall. Top 10 P1 in class. And that is going to be that, as I only see one of the liveries that were battling against each other.
Absolutely, and there was Jeremy Walsh. It seems like for the Blair Autosport team, that would have been Felix Votter's 4th win in a row. Max points 4 times in the last 4 races for Felix Votter. The German just looks unbeatable. You know what? I'm getting Sebastian Vettel vibes off that, I can't lie, from his very late Red Bull days, if you know how they were back in the Formula 1 days. Mike Pierce will come across the line, albeit in P21. It's not been the greatest of races here for young Mike, but I'm sure that he will be, of course, trying to carry on a good momentum sway on toward the next round for Piers, and I think he's going to actually jump ahead there of Vivas. It seemed like Graham Vivas. In fact, yes, he's in fact pitted as Vivas. But there are your final results, and we'll go through them in just a moment's time. We now find everyone has crossed the line, and that is going to be the end of that. We lost 3 drivers in this race: Steve Clace, Elias Spinoli, and Jason Galloway. But here are the final results. It's Corey Lazarus who wins ahead of Felix Votter. Just being told something there from the gallery, because that was the qualifying result. Here are the race results against Felix Votter from Corey Lazarus in P2, with Chris Van Den Ees and Lee in P4. Luke Andrews, after that fantastic overtake on his teammate, extended that gap out for another 1.5 seconds ahead of George Tyler and Stefan Bosch. Oscar Bernison fighting back up to 8th after an earlier collision. We find the first of our amateur classes. It's Abessa Gobadi there in P9, ahead of the first of our pro category class drivers. Dean Powell, our 2 winners there, with Matt Strand. Then we find second in the pro category of Wiley Blair, followed by Simon Mizzomo, and the round off the pro category class is Luke Blow there in P14. And we find second in the amateur category of Ricardo Luis Pereira, with Martin Kenyon, the Englishman, there in P16. That rounds off the podium in the AM category. Jeremy Walsh, Fortis Katechos, Ed Junker, Mike Pierce rounds off the top 20 with Graham Beavers, Clive Davies, Andrew Fallows, and then we find the 3 DNF Steve Clays, Elias Vernoli, and Jason Galloway never got going. The 26 runners there in the Danny Lee Porsche Cup by GT Omega, and that was round 6 of the championship ticked off, and we have 2 more remaining, and I'm sure they're going to be absolutely impeccable, especially that round 8, which is going to be hosted at the beautiful, legendary, challenging, all the superlatives, the Nordschleife combined. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Most definitely, and of course we got to give a big thank you to Evolution Sim Racing for being the host community. Danny has chosen the Evolution Sim Racing community as the host of the Danny Lee Porsche Cup by GT Omega. ESR runs multiple well-run leagues of a variety of disciplines. Head to discord.gg/ESR to join their community and take part in one of their series. Speaking of taking part in one of the series, let's go from back to top. We've got interviews to come your way, and we are going to kick off with the AM winner here at the Virginia International Raceway. It is Gabardi. Gabardi, welcome in. You are live on Apex Racing TV. What a race that was for you. We saw the incident you almost got caught up in. Talk us through that.
Hopefully you can hear me. I just want to thank you for everything. Thanks for the amazing stream. I'm always watching it. Yeah, the race, it was good. I practiced a lot more for the quality than for the race. I learned my mistakes from the last race, but nonetheless, it was amazing. Everything went to plan. There was a lot of argy-bargy, but I'm just glad that I had 4 hours today. I was looking so much for not getting caught up into an incident. But yeah, it was quite a chaotic race, but nonetheless, it was amazing. I'm really happy with the result.
Yeah, and another win in the AM category. So how was that one for you? Of course, Spider GT is your team, but what was it like for you? Of course, another win in the AM, and I would say very similar in geography to like Donington with the hills and the tight circuit with the greenery around. What was like the game plan going into this race after Snetterton 2 weeks ago?
Just keep my head up, basically, even though Snetterton was a disaster. It was similar to other tracks. Obviously, I've never driven, so I had to do a lot of studies, a lot of setup works with myself, and just learning the track a lot, experimenting different racing lines. But it was very important to compromise like this, especially here, because overtaking possibilities was scarce. But I just didn't want to get into an incident or anything, which I think I managed pretty well. And yeah, just looking forward for the next races, and I'll keep this momentum going.
Yeah, so in 2 weeks' time, it's back to 2 25-minute races. A dry wet at Mosport. So going up to the friendly Canadian land. And so what's the plan going into there? Has there been any practice so far, or is it going in blind over this next 2 weeks, trying to get some practice in?
No, I'll be more free, so I'll definitely practice a bit more. But it's not that challenging of a track. But the easy tracks means smaller gap margins, and qualifying will be a lot tighter. So it doesn't mean you have to practice less. You don't have to practice more. And I'm looking forward for the wet race. It's definitely gonna be chaotic, but hopefully I'll avoid them as much as I could today.
Yeah, most definitely. That was a very good result for you, and you got away scot-free in that race. So before we let you go, is there anybody you would like to give a shout out to, or a thanks?
Just thanks for you commentators, for Danny Lee for making this all possible, for the sponsors, and I want to thank my dad a lot because he really, really helps me. And he supports me throughout this journey, so I'm looking forward, and yeah, I wish everyone peace.
Well, thank you very much. We shall let you go. Pop open the champagne for that win in the AM category once again. We shall let you have a good night, as it's quite a few hours ahead of us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Likewise.
And Adam, I shall let you take this one because this is your field. You know how to do this. It's your race winner. It's Felix Votter. And Felix Votter, you are on Apex Racing TV. Adam Reed, take it away.
Felix, first of all, a massive congratulations. That was an absolutely epic result. First of all, let's talk about qualifying, because Virginia is a very difficult circuit to get around. And, you know, how were you managing the lap?
Well, not that great, actually. It could have been way faster. The last lap would have been better, but I messed up some sectors. And with that, I knew, okay, it could probably be a little bit faster than Corey. But in the quali, I basically threw it away. So, yeah, I had to hope for something at the start like that. And in the end, it worked out great. So I was happy with it.
Of course, let's talk about the early stage, because of course you managed to get past Corey and then you found yourself in a massive lead. Did you know anything that was happening behind you?
I watched it a little bit in the relative. Yes, I heard about Corey had an incident from my crew chief there, and in the end he had an incident with Chris, but he ended up in P2, so it seemed to work out still great for him, I guess. So yeah, there was a little bit of things behind me going on, but I just did my thing there.
That seems like the best way to go about it, because of course you had an absolutely massive lead by the end. But then we're going into Rennsport next, potentially a circuit where you may find yourself going for a 5th win in a row, potentially.
I hope so. I mean, we're starting with a wet race, and usually I'm pretty confident with these. But on the other side, I don't own the track right now. I still have to buy it in iRacing, so I never drove there. I should get some practice for that.
Of course, finally, is there anyone you want to thank before we head off the stream?
Yes, I want to thank you guys for the commentary, and I want to thank Danny for organizing this. It's great to have Porsche Cup leagues. They are getting more and more in there, and it's always great to have some competition in these.
Well, Felix, it's been an absolute pleasure. Go and celebrate your win. Felix Votter, everyone. Go and, of course, follow. I'm sure there are socials that we can potentially find you on, if this is true.
Yes, of course. I'm everywhere, basically.
How did you find my Instagram? I was scared when you found that.
Actually, I don't know it.
Right, we'll let you go, Felix. Congratulations on tonight.
Thanks, man. Have a great evening.
Same to you.
Take care.
Well, Adam, before we round out, is there anything you would like to say to the fans?
The fans. I'll do a little bit of a self shout out and then I'll pass it on to you. So you can follow me at Adam Reed _commentary. I know a lot of people get my surname wrong, so it's Adam REID, not READ any other way. REID _commentary. That's where you can find all my announcements, all my clips, and everything to do with my commentary. I'm also on TikTok at motorsportadam44, and you may potentially see a couple of clips go up, but usually it is motorsport content, not released quite commentary. But we are trying to go for 9K. I think we just reached just over 8.4 thousand just after Le Mans, so we're trying to get to 10K. It's the ultimate goal, but you know, I think that may be another year in advance. But if you could drop a follow, that would be absolutely appreciated so much.
Yeah, and my socials are, if you just search up Zelexi, that is ZELEXI. That's all my socials. I am nowhere near Adam, nowhere near, but that is where you can find me. But of course, this is Apex Racing TV. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications to get notified every single time we go live, not just with the Daniel Elite Porsche Cup, but with all different kinds of racing series here on iRacing. We go to Mosport in 2 weeks' time, and of course, that is up in Canada. Then a month from now, it's the season finale. It is the Nordschleife. We've still got racing action to come your way here in DLPC. Subscribe, let us know who you support. Stick around. I've been Alexa Marshall with Adam Reed. In the background, it's been Jamie Fluke, who's been bringing you all these camera shots. This has been the Virginia International Raceway. Good night.